And if we go a little bit back about the scientific understanding of our mind as being run inside of the brain as the computer, this computer of our brain, it's interesting because it doesn't just like calculate for no reason. The science shows, of course, that there are different tasks for this computer. It tries to understand patterns in the world, for example, whether it's to find food or just for some other tasks, but it clearly performs certain tasks, certain specific, it looks for specific outcomes, it finds specific patterns, and so on. So it's a big, complicated machine that solves certain tasks. But what science does not actually say is what role does the consciousness have in this machine? So if you think of the whole complete set of tasks that, let's say, just your body, just your physical body for now, tries to accomplish, it's a huge set. Even something like just walking is computationally is quite a complicated problem. There is a huge set of different circuits and different parts that solves different kinds of problems. And then there is the consciousness. How we described it in this video is this mini virtual game which is run inside this computer somewhere, and inside that there is you that is kind of like interacting with this mini game. So while there might be different kinds of practical problems that this huge machine is trying to solve, it does not mean that the internal game has to be the part that needs to solve them. That it doesn't mean that this part, your consciousness inside this mini game, it doesn't mean that it even has to know about these problems, because there is so much around it in what we could call our subconscious mind and our subconscious being. And not only does this internal consciousness doesn't have to know about certain problems, but it can also be constructed in such a way that its perception of those problems can be almost in whatever way imaginable, because this internal thing doesn't have to correspond exactly to the computational problems that the mind is trying to solve. So while even if we say that there are certain specific physical problems that the whole system is trying to solve, the internal consciousness might just be designed, can be made in such a way that inside that minigame it should just feel itself as, for example, a ball of light, and it should be sending love to this ball of light, because then the rest of your subconscious will connect that message to fixing actual specific problems, practical problems and tasks in your life. And in fact, most of our things in our life that we're trying to solve, that we are worrying about, that all these tasks that we're trying to solve, in practice they're not that complicated. The machine around the consciousness can solve them easily because it's made for it. They might be complicated problems. They might require, a lot of time and energy to resolve, but you already have this time and energy. It's already inside you. You don't have to perceive this process as problematic or painful in any way. So the point is, scientifically, it can likely be constructed in such a way that when the internal part of you, the consciousness, when it does its thing, when it, for example, thinks of itself as the ball of light and sends the love to it, then the rest of the consciousness just does its thing and creates the best possible life for you. Of course, based on the physical circumstances, but it still does the best possible, it creates the best possible outcome for you. Whereas if you instead, as a consciousness, if you don't do your job of creating love and things like that, if you instead try to think out of certain problems, if you, instead of doing what the consciousness is supposed to do, if you go into other areas of this machine and try to do its job, then things just start going in the wrong direction, because you are not that good at doing each job. It was made for resolving specific problems, but you were not made for that. And if you try to do its job, you are just, like putting pins in the wheels. You're just like destroying things which were already working. So what does it all mean for us, really? One main thing that it means is that the internal subjective world should be viewed as primary. Many people already understand that there is something, there is a subjective world that we live in, that it's not, that we don't live in a physical world, but they still think that the physical world is the primary. That's the primary source of information, that's the primary source of all things in life. Whatever we're doing, even if we're studying something using scientific method, we're actually doing it from inside of all this mini-game. So whenever we interact with anything, first we interact with subjective world, and then through that we might interact with something in the physical world. So studying the subjective world should be of primary importance, and the rest should come as secondary. One common thing that as a scientific person you start thinking is that yes, I understand that there is the subjective world, and I understand there is some kind of spiritual things going on, but I don't want to play that. I am smart now, we're civilized now, we have science, we have understood how things are working, we can study it. I don't want to be studying this spiritual shit because I have other methods now. But it doesn't actually work to say it like that, because even when you say that, even your ability to say that and your willingness to say that, even that actually comes from the subjective world, because everything you do comes first from the subjective world. Everything you do or say or decide is in some way a part of this virtual minigame. So what happened is that in this minigame you have put a value of maybe scientific understanding, or maybe just a value of being smart, or maybe a value of understanding the world in a certain way, in some kind of correct way. You've just put it inside this virtual game as of paramount importance. But even in that case, it makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of value in studying and especially feeling out how this minigame is working, how this minigame affects your life, affects your decisions. Jordan Peterson actually said it really well.
We didn't understand that truth comes in different forms depending on its application. It's a tricky thing. There's the truths that apply when you're attempting to describe the transformations of the material world. And there's the truths that apply when you're trying to determine how it is that you should act while you're alive.
So what this also means is that as a human, you are kind of required to have some kind of spirituality. You are required to learn these things about you, because if you don't, your system will not work in a proper way. Just think of it as the operating system for your mind. If you are denying spirituality, that's like saying, let's say that you're an artist and you're just saying, I have my Adobe tools here, I just want to sit here and just edit images. I don't care about these operating systems, I don't care, should I have Mac, should I have Windows, should I have this and that. This is like, I am above that. I don't want to choose anything, I don't want to have anything, I just want my Adobe tools. You kind of see that it doesn't work that way, because you have to run your Adobe tools somewhere. If you edit your drawings, and suddenly your files start disappearing, or you can't even save them, or you can't send them, or just some weird things are starting to happen in your computer, you can't edit your images that well. You might edit some of them, but you still need to fix your OS. And it's kind of similar here. You need to fix your spirituality. And this is especially not either about deceiving ourselves or denying some kind of scientific truths or denying certain theories because we don't like them. A proper structured spirituality, a proper developed spirituality, it never actually conflicts with any scientific theories or any use of science in your everyday life or use of the machines or building of the new machines. Science, it kind of tells you how the physical reality operates. It can tell you how to build certain machines. It can tell you how, basically it answers the question of how. How does the world work? How do machines work? How can we do certain things to get certain physical outcomes? Whereas the spirituality answers the question why. Why should you do any of it? Why it even exists? And whether you like it or not, you do care about the question why. This is the nature of the game that you are playing. You can try to deny it. You can try to answer the question why with the question how, but it just will not work that well. This also means that the spiritual answers are not random either. Many people start thinking that since it's not based on science, then it means that you can answer the other questions however you want, and that there's no knowledge there. There's nothing to learn. It's just like a completely random thing. That's not the case either. There is specific knowledge that you can acquire. There's specific skills. If you really do follow the advice of a spiritual teacher that teaches you how to do that, of course, but if you follow the advice of sending love to the ball of light, that will work. You will feel better. Your life will start flowing more. If you send hate to the similar ball, your life will start to deteriorate. This is only the simplest example possible. There is myriads of other knowledge there is to learn about this, but this is just to show that it's not random. It's not whatever. It's not just some woo-woo bullshit. It's quite specific knowledge that there are certain ways to learn. This is also a bit confusing to scientific people because for many scientific people, the science has actually been a great source of good knowledge and good information. In many areas, if you don't go through the scientific methods, the knowledge you get will not be that good. It will actually be either random or there will be no way to check whether it's the right knowledge or not. And the science has worked so well for these people, which it does in the beginning of your life, especially when you're a kid. Many scientific methods, they actually work somewhat well to feel somewhat good. So of course, when these people hear about the balls of light and energies, they just think there's no direct scientific way to check this, so how am I ever going to use that in acquiring any knowledge which will actually be truthful to any extent? But there actually are ways in spirituality to learn things with a great extent of certainty. They are not the same ways as in science. There are people who are good at teaching it. There are ways of teaching it, but one of the keys to being able to acquire this knowledge is to realize that yes, we have science and we have the scientific understanding of the physical world with its laws, with its evolution and chemistry of the brain. It's like specific neurotransmitters and how they affect your mood and stuff like that. But there's also the world of experience, the subjective world, and it works. It has a little bit different laws. I would definitely try to expand more on these ways of acquiring the spiritual knowledge in the upcoming videos and how they differ from scientific methods. So stay tuned for that. Do comment if you found any of this stuff interesting or useful. Do comment if you agree or disagree with some of these things. I would like a conversation in the comments about this. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I see you guys in the next video. Bye.